Alright guys, it's Box. I'm back from Eternal Weekend. I've got some stuff laid out on my desk here. Just some things that I picked up from vendors, some final cards just to finish play sets, some stuff that I got signed, some tokens, a couple exclusive items, and then some signatures on a couple of things that I brought with me. I also have, they're already opened because I opened them at the event, but I have some RK Post, his booster packs that he makes with tokens and artist proofs and stuff in there. I'll open them and let you guys see those along with the exclusive mats from the event. And then I'll pause the video after I show off kind of the stuff that I picked up and talk about Eternal Weekend as a whole kind of. And I'll pause the video, lay out the decks that I played in each event, and then kind of walk through my record in the events and deck choices and stuff like that, because I know it's interesting to some people to see deck tech stuff. So, excuse me, I just got done eating lunch a little while ago. To kind of see some of the stuff that you can pick up while you're at Eternal Weekend, or signatures you can get, and meeting and greeting with artists and hanging out and stuff like that. So I think when I move the camera, I'm going to have to move some of the stuff that I have laid out here on the mat just so that it's all in frame. But let's go ahead and click over to that. So this was the big pickup for the weekend. As far as signatures and tokens and stuff like that, there's a slew of RK Post stuff, as he is my favorite artist. But I'll walk through some of the non-RK Post stuff, and then I'll kind of push it off to the side. That way I can get down to things, and then you can see this mat that's hidden back here. So first things first, I was able to get my set of Korean Esper Sentinels signed, which I thought was really cool to finally get signatures on these. They look really good. Oh, we're gonna put these as well in frame as possible. And Eric's signature is really nice, and I think I let him pick the color on the signature, and I think the gold works really well on these. These are a Korean playset I picked up a while ago, and collectively together, I think they look really good. I think they came out well. And then here's some old favorites of mine. My old Pernicious Deeds. You can see how played they are, how beat up they are, but I'm just going to keep playing these things, so I don't care that they're chewed up, but it is cool to have Muller's signature on these at this point in time. This is a bittersweet moment for me on the sleight of hands. The signature came out fantastic. It looks great. Once it hits focus, yeah. The shadow signature on that looks great. But here's the problem. The rest of my set is German, and I was not able to find a German one while I was there to finish the set. So this is the nightmare that's going to haunt me for a little while. Is I've got the one English one and the 3 Germans until I can find a German one, and then I can also get to an event with Phil there to get him to sign that one yet again for me. And he was there with his amazing artist wife as well, who did the art on Pyroblast. So I got some Pyroblast signed as well, which will make their way into my Legacy Painter decks, and also Legacy Delver, and basically anything else. This plays red just as one of the great red removal / interaction spells of basically all time. And then we'll get into, I'll do real quick the stuff that I bought in order to finish playsets. Picked my last Phyrexian Dreadnought up. Got a good deal on that one. Not too bad. A little bit of play on it, but it's going to get played. I play all my cards. I basically don't own anything just to own it. If I own something just to own it, it's something weird. And then also my last Grim to finish my set. This also has some play on it. I got a really good deal on this. If you're ever at big events and you're looking at good deals on cards and whatnot, Tim over at Toa hooked me up on this Grim. Thanks, Tim, if you're watching. He gave me a really good deal on that. so that I could finish my play set out. I'm going to be working on, there's a an 8-key Paradox Engine mono brown legacy deck that I'm a big colorless fan as far as playing, and I really dig that list. I think it's a cool deck and whatnot, so I'm going to definitely test it out. My buddy that went with me to Eternal Weekend played against it in the Legacy main and told me about it, and I was like, that's dope. I will definitely be looking online somewhere for some sort of list as like a starting point to get some ideas. I think some of the decks are splashing blue. I don't know if I'll do that. Regardless, let's get into some of my RK Post signatures. I managed to get this bad boy done while I was there. It's a foil full art World Gorger Dragon from Dawn Remastered with the shadow signature on it, and it looks fantastic. He did an amazing job, and his signature, block this out, his signature on there pops really well with the shadow sign. And then I don't have the fourth one with me because I got that signed a couple of months back at TCG Con here in Tampa, but I was able to find the rest of the play set of Russian Tideholler Scullers and get these bad boys shadow signed as well, just like my other one is. So now my play set is full shadow signed. I am working on black-white Scam for Modern. So I'm going to play Tidehowlers in my list because, in my opinion, I have the dopest playset of Tideholler Scullers that I possibly could play in these Russian shadow signed ones. I think they look great, and the signature on them just takes them over the top. Show off some of these exclusive tokens. Let's now that I have less stuff here, I'm going to zoom the camera in just a little bit, and then I will zoom it back out to show off the mat. So these 4 tokens here, I'm going to move them up a little bit because my head's in the way in the bottom corner here. These were exclusive and available to purchase. We got a zombie that RK Post did that he jokingly said that he referenced Howard, Lynn, and he says that he didn't, but then he says that he did, and he said that I was chatting with him, and he's like, I just drew a zombie, and it happened to look like Howard, so now I call it the Howard zombie, and my goal is to, if I see Howard at an event, get him to sign the zombie as well, because he's the reference, but not the reference material, and then ask him when he's going to do an RK Post zombie. And then food token and a goblin token. These all look really good. And then to add to my RK Post power collection, because I have like in-place proxy power. I always pick up the power from his exclusives when he does full colors on them. This is his jet, and it looks phenomenal in full color. And I'll do some close-ups of the goblin, the food, and the zombie. Zombie looks really good. And then, as you can kind of see at the bottom here, are the same tokens, but slightly different. So you got these tokens from playing in the events. You got the Goblin here, if you played in the Vintage main event. And he looks pretty dang good. Nice up close and personal. I walked over and had Mr. Post sign these for me. I'll leave my hand right here so I can grab the food. The food was the VIP exclusive, but we're not going to talk about how I got it. Wink, wink, you know who you are. If you're watching, how I ended up with my food token. Again, signed by Mr. Post. And then, last but not least, the zombie, which when you see him up close and personal, full art, zoom in on his face, the amount of detail in this is fantastic. I will say that The detail in this work is definitely a reason why I fell in love with RK Post art years ago as a young kid and really got into Magic. And then outside of that, I just have some random tokens that I picked up because he does really good deals on tokens and whatnot. So just show off a couple of random ones that I picked up. I think I grabbed a couple of extra stuffs, but they're in deck boxes or something. He does one of these boxes has the rest of the Lucy tokens that I picked up. I should have thought about this a little bit better. Yeah, a 1-ring token to represent protection and colorless mana as well, which looks just like the blue one, but it's colorless. Those were just little things that I picked up while I was there. I knew that with the decks that I was playing, I was going to need a way to track my colorless mana, because I decided to play. Well, you'll find out what I decided to play, because I'm going to do deck techs on it and talk about my records and everything like that. So let's move this stuff out of the way, and I will do the packs. Well, let's do this mat first. Let's zoom out. This is the participant in the Legacy Championship playmat. You got this dope Emrakul playmat with art by Mark Teaton. Unfortunately, Mark Teaton was not there, so I wasn't able to get the mat signed by him. But Mark will be in Atlanta this weekend for the RC, which I will be at, so I will be bringing my mat with me to Atlanta to get him to sign it. Probably get him to do somewhere in this general area, in this nice blank space that's right here. Maybe even get him to doodle something cool in there, or maybe chuck a couple extra little Eldrazi in here, or something fun. Maybe some squirrels, if anybody's seen the Emrakul dies to 15 squirrels meme. And then, you know what? Let's do these packs. So I got 2 of these booster packs, and I opened them while I was there. And so the booster packs are structured with an artist proof, which, for those of you not familiar, artist proofs are white-backed versions of the card, and they give a limited amount to the artist for them to do as they see fit. Sign them and sell them, doodle on the back, whatever you want to do to them. Just sell them to customers and people that are interested in the art. They're technically not playable. And then there's a few exclusive tokens in here. There's a few old tokens before RK Post changed his framing on his tokens, because the current framing is this style. Black and white with the like banners at the top. This is a flip token for the Wicked Cursed roll. But most of them are kind of more set up like this, where it's the name here, then the art, and then any information down here, like PT if it's a creature token. So there's a couple of older tokens from prior to him changing the format of how he kind of laid the tokens out, and then a JPN language print acrylic token as well. So I already know what's in these. I'm going to open these up and show these off. This is the acrylic token. Come on, focus for me. There we go. Little 1/0 elemental from Master of Waves. We got a signature down at the bottom. These all come pre-signed inside. But I opened these packs in front of him and chatted with him as the packs opened, so he kind of was able to tell me, like, oh, there's only so many of this token, there's only so many of that token, and so on and so forth. We got a Karafik the Merciless artist proof, numbered 18 out of 50. Shadow signed, blank back. Maybe I might take this win back with me to Atlanta this weekend and get him to sketch something on the back. We have an aluminum, I believe there's an aluminum card art or token in, it's the ring light hates the aluminum, but this is of the zombie. So I'm super stoked. This looks really good, and this is numbered out of 50. 48 out of 50. So I'm stoked to have this. I don't know what I'm going to play to make zombies, but I'm going to play the hell out of that zombie token. And then we'll show off. These are the older style RK Post tokens. We got a Kraken. Proper posh Kraken with a martini and a top hat. And then a 1/1 elemental. And then a insect. Nice little Hornet Queen style insect. Maybe I'll play something at Atlanta at the RC that runs Hornet Queen. And then the weekend exclusive tokens that I already showed off. Minus this Goblin Shaman. This is one that he did not have available. This is actually from Minneapolis. He had these to put in the packs, but he didn't have them available for purchase. So this, along with the Goblin, the Food, the Zombie, and the Jet that I showed off earlier, is all in the packs as well. So I just have extras of those because I'm an absolute animal and I can't contain myself, and I just keep buying stuff. I spent way too much money. I hope my significant other is not watching this video, because I'm pretty sure I spent more at Eternal Weekend on tokens and signatures than I did on her for Christmas. I have to fix that. And then this is the other pack that I opened, and this one was probably one of the coolest things that I've ever bought and ended up with, especially with randomization. So I'm going to try to get this to focus on this, but that is a foil artist proof of Karn the Living Legacy, done by RK Post. So shadow signed. It's number 28 out of 50. When I saw that he did art for Karn, who's one of my favorite characters in Magic, done by my favorite artist, I bought a play set of these, even though the card is arguably probably the worst card ever printed, including the 2 creature variants. And then when I open this, it's got a full artist sketch on the back. Oh my god, the ring light is not you know what? I'm gonna have to unpenny sleeve this. It's got a full artist sketch on the back, Studio Ghibli, and I was talking to Post, and he said that this is actually the art for his trash token coming up from the Fallout tokens. So I'm ecstatic that I got an artist proof of my favorite character by my favorite artist with a full sketch on the back. I'm gonna probably fanboy this as like one of my prized possessions for a long period of time. I might even do the Jake Paul, Logan Paul card necklace thing. That is one of the coolest things that I own. Same tokens we saw before, so no need to go back through those again. These are some old water tokens. Once again, we got a germ, which I have some of the newer germs. This guy's goofy. I like this guy. It's fun. We got an angel, and we got a bird. The bird is cool too. It's got a very Edgar Allan Poe feel going on to it. The raven. I assume that's probably what he was going for on that. And then this thing is dope. This is an aluminum art print, card size. And this is actually of the lightning bolt art that RK posted, that the Legacy first place champion got the painting for. So as far as I know, the only way to get this lightning bolt art is to buy one of these aluminum prints or a regular print from RK Post, or to have won the Legacy main event, which had 996 players, and it was the largest registered Legacy event since Grand Prix Atlanta 5 years ago, I think it was, roughly 5 years ago. So the art on this is fantastic. I hope that, I mean, it would be kind of sad to, like, put the art on an actual lightning bolt at this point in time after the Legacy champion won it. But it's not on a card. He has the original art, so I would love to see Arcade Post lightning bolts. We can only hope that there will be a master set that lightning bolt is in. And then this guy, Japanese acrylic samurai token. I do not have a deck that plays samurais, but this is a dope token. Arcade Post does a lot of Pokemon on his tokens and whatnot, and I dig it. I like Pokemon. Pokemon's very nostalgic to me. It's got a warm place in my heart from getting me into trading card games and whatnot, but I figured I'd show off the swag, the pickups, the purchases, the winnings, the exclusive items, kind of show you guys the stuff that's available at Eternal Weekend, which is such a big, it's such a fun event too. It's a lot of old guys playing Magic, and having a good time. Like, it's something I've learned over the years playing Magic is, and it's the theory is solidifying itself over and over and over and over again, is the more money you spend on your deck, or the more money your deck is worth, the chiller and nicer you are. Like, it's just my experience. I had no vintage matches where... That's not true. I had one vintage match where my opponent was, like, kind of sweaty, kind of over serious. But honestly, out of 9 rounds in the first day, and then 12 in the second day, inside of it, or across the rest of the weekend inside of it. Excuse me, I'm gonna water. I'm like not able to catch my breath. 12 more rounds of vintage throughout the weekend. That's better. I had one guy that was kind of took things a little too seriously, in my opinion, or like wasn't like joking and having fun one. Everybody else that I played, and then all of my legacy matches, the few that I had, I'll get to that momentarily. We all had a blast. We were joking, we were having fun, we were letting each other go off with combos, and nobody was like really like, oh well, the time, like, come on, speed it up, figure your life out, figure your shit out. We were just kind of like, no, do it, do your thing, have fun. It's a blast. That's what we're all here for. So I'm very much solidified in the mindset that the more your deck costs, the chiller and nicer you are as a person. Pioneer players get super sweaty. I don't even know what to think about standard players. Modern players are like 50-50. You get guys that like don't even want to shake your hand after you wreck them in a match, and then you got guys that will laugh with you the whole time while you're both playing, and you guys will blame the Moto Shuffler for bad draws and stuff in paper. So there's that, and then like Legacy is like almost all goofing off and very little seriousness, and then Vintage, from my play experience of playing over the weekend, playing paper Vintage, is one guy excluded, everyone is just stoked to play Vintage. Because it feels like playing Magic 20-something years ago when you were in it to play and have fun and you were a kid and whatnot. Like, yeah, there's money on the line, or there's prize tickets on the line, and you want to win because winning is funner than losing, but, like, nobody that I beat got salty. Nobody that I lost to did I get salty. And I had a very bad match on the last day that I was there in one of my side events. I was like, this is abysmal. And I didn't scoop. I didn't salt out or anything. I let my opponent play. I let my opponent win. She was very nice. She was clearly very new to the game. Was not playing a lot of old border and power stuff. She was playing a very like anti-vintage deck, and she was making some misplays and everything like that, and we were going really slow and making sure that she played to her outs without me basically like walking her through lines and whatnot. And at no point in time did I get aggravated and I'm like, Jesus, I'm losing to this and whatnot. I was like, no, we're here to have fun. We're here to play vintage. I'm having a blast the whole weekend. I don't care that I'm losing this game. Let's just keep going. That being said, this beautiful mat is here, and I'm going to get out of the way to show off this beautiful mat. So, this mat, I'm going to have to shimmy the mat up a little bit so that you can see the rest of the signatures. But this mat is signed by all of the artists that were at Eternal Weekend. So, Margaret Orton Keene, Schuler, Phil is here, his wife is here, Arcade Post with 2023 Eternal Weekend, Ben, who graffitied little hearts here, who was sitting next to Arcade Post, signed. We've got, oh my God, I'm blanking. Eric Dechamp's here. Drew is here, I believe. Or no, this is Chris Muller's. This is Chris Muller's signature. This is Schuler. And then this is Drew, who is there as well. This signature is the funniest one. Mark, who runs Signature Services, Elves and Goblins, the Facebook group, and does a lot of signings with artists, and is also Doug's manager and Dan's manager, I believe, as well. And I believe he might even be Richard King Ferguson's manager. He's manager for a few artists as well. And I say hi to him every time I see him at an event, no matter the size of the event. It's always good to see Mark. Mark, if you're watching, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Glad you got home and everything like that. Saw your post. Asked me if I had gotten my mat signed by Drew because Drew was leaving and his booth was already packed up. And I was like, no, where is he? I'm like looking around and I see him across the way talking to Arcade Post. I'm like, Drew, and he turns around, he sees me, and I'm like, he wanders over, and I'm like, huge favor, if you have time before you leave and it look like you're getting out of here, will you please sign my Eternal Weekend mats? There's another one on the chair behind me here. I managed to pick a second one up off the floor off of a player. And he's like, oh, I would love to, but I don't have a pen. And right as he said that, not 2 or 3 seconds later, Doug flung a pen across the room at us, and I was like, oh, look, a pen! And he's like, oh, well, now I have to sign them, and sign the mats for me. The second one that I got signed by everybody, I got signed for my younger brother, who I went to Eternal Weekend with last year, and was not able to, because of his jobs and everything, and finances, was not able to go. So I hope he's not watching this video right now. I'm going to tell him not to watch the channel or it's going to be spoiled, but I have a second one for him. So we can have Eternal Weekend signed mats just like we do from last year when we got to go together. And then hopefully in years to come, we will go to the rest of them together and get everything signed together, and this will be the only one that I have to proxies get signatures for. Alright, we're back, and I have my deck list laid out for Vintage. The sleeves and the ring light are not cooperating with each other, and it's just miserable, and clearly I'm not going to de-sleeve my entire Vintage deck to get better camera angle shots on this. Yeah, that ring light just sucks. It doesn't like sleeves. We'll walk through. I'll do breakdowns of what I played. Some of the choices made were due to construction restrictions. At the time of deciding to play Vintage and being offered to borrow a set of workshops to play Vintage, I had access to no power. Over chatting with friends of friends and whatnot, I was able to locate a time vault. The current copies on the table are not the copies that I played over the weekend either. I already have gotten things packed up and mailed back to people, and I'm borrowing currently a set of beta power, including the rest of stuff that I was missing, because there is a Vintage side event this weekend at the RC in Atlanta. So I borrowed a set of workshops, and I was fully under the idea that I was going to play no power aggro shops. Due to a great friend that I have over in California, a buddy of his had a time vault that he offered up to me, not this one specifically. And I was like, cool. Well, I guess I'll play shops with just the one time vault, and I'll just make it work, and it'll be an aggro list that can just kind of oops into infinite turns. If you're not familiar, the combo is voltaic, or either voltaic or manifold key. I run manifold key with a ton of creatures. The making a creature unblockable is relevant sometimes. And then time vault, and you tap the key to untap the vault, then you tap the vault to take an extra turn. The vault doesn't untap normally, the key does, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you have all of the turns and you've won the game. I expected to play at no power, so I was going to play some number of MOX Opals and like Lotus Petal and things of that sort, and then I lucked out. Bossman John had a jet that he offered me to borrow. This is not his jet. His is a very clean, unlimited jet, which I've already given back to him. This is my friend who loaned me the shops. I have his black border power on the table because I was able to borrow that from him, because now after Eternal Weekend he doesn't need it for this weekend coming up in Atlanta because he's not going, where he was generous enough to loan it off to me, including the last two parts, the Pearl and the Sapphire, which I was not able to locate for Eternal Weekend. So this is the list that I ran at Eternal Weekend, just not the exact cards. So we have 4 Ancient Tombs, 4 Mishra's Workshops, 4 Wasteland, 1 Buried Rune, 1 Strip Mine, 1 Tellurian Academy, 1 Inventor's Fair, and then 2 Urza Saga. Those are your lands. Well, those were my lands. Those are the only lands that I played. Looking back, I probably should have shimmied an extra Saga in there. The Buried Rune had some cool applications in order to buy back some artifacts that I needed. A Lodestone in a match. I bought a Golos back in a match. I bought a Patchwork back in a match. I bought a Ravager back, which ended up doing twofold. I sacked a bunch of stuff to the Ravager, sacked the Ravager himself, moved all the counters over to a Patchwork, then bought the Ravager back a couple of turns later after I had Mana Crypt and a Mana Vault on the table dealing me some damage, ate it away, started swinging out with with a big Ravager or a decent sized Ravager until I hit a Shadow Spear off a Saga and went for the fences. So I would probably shave a card somewhere. I'm not sure what. Maybe a Revoker. I could probably shave a Revoker and go up to a third Saga. I would love to get a fourth one in here, but I just don't think that it would work. Maybe if I play... If I was playing no power at all, it's very easy to just fill in power slots with lands because you need your lands. But that being said, then the Sagas get a little bit worse because now you don't have as much stuff to go grab off of the Saga in order to replace itself. Saga in Vintage is really good. You almost always have a Crypt or a Soul Ring or a Moxen in your deck when your Saga dies to replace itself, so you're not down and starved for mana. Or you have a Key in your deck or a Shadow Spear in your deck to go grab off it so you have some sort of utility out of it, or a card that you've sideboarded and it's a one-drop Cage, so on and so forth. Moving out of the lands and into the rest of the deck, it's all artifacts. Shops is a mono brown list or mono colorless. You don't play any colored mana pips anywhere unless you want to count for Phyrexian Metamorph, but you're almost never paying the blue for him because life is a resource. That being said, these two cards here are Phyrexian Metamorphs. I know it's hard to see with the ring light, which end up just being extra copies of other things in your deck that you're restricted on. So whether it be you copy a Soul Ring so that you have a little bit extra mana, or you copy a Lodestone Golem to make it a little bit tougher on your opponents to cast spells, or a Wormcoil Engine, or a One Ring, or an extra Shadow Spear, like an extra Crucible if you think one of yours is going to get popped, an extra Key to get more dudes in, copy a Golos and just get the land ETB if you're being starved, a Ravager and Eat the World, Revoker, name something else. It's just a nice utility card. It also copies other things really well. Oath is super popular in the format. I kind of went into Vintage blind. I knew that there was a couple of different decks in the format, that there was a Lurrus Control style deck in the format, but then I noticed that there was like 3. I knew that Shops was a deck in the format, but I didn't expect to play a ton of the mirrors, and I didn't play any mirrors. I actually have all of my matches written down somewhere. Here we go. I have my matches written down of what I won against and what I lost against. So, round 1, I played against Hogak Vine. We'll get to this in a second. I'm going to stop that for a moment and keep going through the list. 3 Patchworks. Patchwork was a house. It was absolutely phenomenal. The first and foremost thing that I would do to this list is I would go up to a 4th Patchwork. He just wrecked face in every way, shape, and form. I had turns where I went, in games where I went turn 1, Workshop, play Patchwork Automaton, and then played all but 1 card out of my hand because my last card was a land, and everything else were Moxen or like a Soul Ring or a Crypt or something that led me into being able to play more stuff. And then the rest of the stuff was like a Revoker or a Walking Ballista on 2 or a free Chalice. I did have a game where I managed to go Workshop, play a Patchwork, I believe it was Soul Ring with the one floating, tap the Soul Ring, play a second Patchwork, and then followed it up with Crypt Moxen Shadow Spear equip. So I ended up with two very big Patchworks, one of them with a Shadow Spear in it and naked handed, but I killed my opponent in 2 turns because they just couldn't put things on the table, and every draw out of my deck, including lands, were live at that point. Like, if I draw another land, it means that the follow-up turn, my draw is pretty live. If I draw any non-land in a very light land-light deck, I mean, we're looking at 18 lands here. I draw any artifact, the Patchworks get bigger and get closer to lethal, and the fact that he comes with Ward 2 is really good. It's not as difficult in Vintage to cover that Ward 2, but it's not as easy as you'd think either. I did decide on the one Golos. I saw lists that were as many as 3. I figured that 1 was an okay number for me because I was playing less of a prison strategy and more of an aggro strategy, but I still wanted something that could grab my Inventor's Fair for tutoring, or Tolarian to make a decent amount of mana, or Strip Mine so that I could Crucible, Strip Mine, lock, or Buried Ruin in order to get something back, or maybe even just a Shops because I was just shy on my curve of playing multiple things out, or was stuck under Ancient Tombs out on the table, and I was tired of just losing tons of life to my Ancient Tombs and not being able to cover any bases on it. And honestly, Golos isn't bad to just grab a Saga either, and then just spit a couple of dudes out, a couple of shitters later as time goes on. Moving on, I played 3 Walking Ballistas, which the glare on this ring light sucks. But it's 3 Walking Ballistas and a Worm Coil engine. I opted to not play the 4th one because over here is a Karn the Great Creator, and I put one in the board so that I could kill my opponents, along with a couple other toolbox singleton cards. Under the Ballistas and the Worm Coil engine are 3 Phyrexian Revokers. I wasn't terribly impressed with Phyrexian Revoker. He can name Moxen, he can name Black Lotus and the like, but he cannot name any lands. So one of the biggest problems is Bazaar of Baghdad decks, and then opposing Saga decks. You can't name with the Phyrexian Revoker, so at minimum I would probably cut 1 Revoker, and I would put a Pithy Needle in somewhere here. I did not have a Pithy Needle this weekend. I looked at some shops lists. Not a single one of them had Pithy Needle. I would have loved to have Pithy Needle all weekend. In my Vine matches, I would have mulliganed to Pithy Needles and Leyline of the Voids just to ruin their day. With the Revokers as a Lodestone Golem, he's restricted. I understand why. A 5/3 body that you can consistently play on turn 1 that tells your opponent, outside of your power, your Moxen, and your rocks and whatnot, you're getting taxed. It's like the best Thalia I've ever played, and would kill a Thalia in combat no problem. I would have loved to play more. I will say that I'm working on, as you can see with me picking up the Last Grim Monolith for my collection, I am working on Colorless Post for Legacy, which will play a full set of Golems because they're just so good. Underneath the Golems is a set of Arcbound Ravagers. Modern back in the day All-Star Arcbound Ravager and vintage Beat House. I mean, I ate Soul Rings, I ate One Rings, I ate Chalices, Trinispheres, I ate Saga tokens that were about to die. I ate Sphere Resistance so that I wasn't getting taxed after getting wastelanded. I ate my own Moxin. I ate a Black Lotus at one point with a Ravager. It looked dumb, but I killed my opponent, so it wasn't. If it looks dumb but it works, then it isn't. Yeah. Ravager's just a house. There's a reason there's 4 in the list. I would never cut one. Yeah, he's the man. He's the beater of the. Him and Patchwork are phenomenal. I think the rest of the creatures are kind of iffy. Arcbound, Patchwork, Lodestone. Ballista is nice for kills, but I feel like a lot of people expect Ballista, especially when they see a workshop. So if they're playing any kind of taxing effect or needle effect, they're going to name Ballista because it's probably going to be your game plan, because they can. Most decks can make blockers pretty consistently for Patchwork, and then chump for a while. You just have to buy your time. Moving on, Sphere Resistance. I played 3. I saw lists as much as 4. I decided to play 3. I sided Sphere out in some capacity most matches. So I would say that possibly, I think 1 Revoker and 1 Sphere down is what I would go, and we'll get to that in a moment with moving forward as far as like close to what I'll play in the Atlanta Vintage Side event this weekend. But I mean, it's a huge taxing effect, but you make so much mana in this deck. I mean, I had a turn where my Tolarian Academy made like 17. So I had 17 artifacts in play, and then I dumped my hand and then used the remainder of the blue mana to activate a Saga, making a like 1919 construct or 2020 construct, and then played a pretty big Ballista. I've played a couple big Ballistas off of a good Tolarian. I've used the mana to crack Buried Rune, buy something back out of the graveyard, replay that. A couple of dope, fun plays. I spun Golos a couple of times. I was never able to spin Golos twice in a turn, just because of my restriction on my mana. I think the best I could spin Golos is once in a turn and then still be short, just because of the way that my mana lines up with my Moxins and everything like that, and no ways to like filter mana. But that's not really the point of it. Like, the Golos spin effect is a win more. But I had a game where like I didn't have anything else going on and I was just drawing lands, and I was like, math checks, spin Golos, let's see what's up. And the top deck was trash. I hit 2 lands and a Mind Break Trap. And funny enough, my opponent said that turn kept me alive because he had spells and stuff that he could do at instant speed, but in order to like fire off his rituals and then cast his spell at instant speed, I had the Mind Break Trap up that I could just cast for free at any point in time and shut down his interaction. So I bought myself a free turn with a Golos that basically just chipped in for 3 damage. We'll move on to the Karn, who is restricted in the format. That's my boy, my favorite character in all of Magic, Karn. the Silver Golem. That is a great creator. So I have a tailored sideboard, which I'll move some of the stuff out of the way when I get through it and kind of show off like the singletons that I play with Karn. I'll leave Karn on the table and we'll look at some of the singletons that I can grab with him. He also buys stuff back from Exile, which a lot of people don't read the full text on Karn. I've had it happen in Modern, I've had it happen in Legacy, I've had it happen in Pioneer. They don't read the card. Because someone sorted one of my patchwork automatons this weekend. I was like, that's cute. Minus Karn, grab patchwork automaton, cast it. He goes, you have a patchwork at your sideboard? I'm like, no. But you swords my patchwork, and I thank you very much for the 13 life. But I'm going to cast it, and I'm going to do it again. We kind of went over the Time Vault already. Again, restricted as one of. Who doesn't like taking all of the turns. One rings. I'm playing 3. You'll find out why I only have 3 in a moment. It's not restricted. There's no declassification on it or any reason other than I'm savage that there's 3. 1 Shadow Spear. Great hit off Urza Saga. If you draw it naturally, fine. If it's what you grab off of Saga, fine. The only thing better than a giant Patchwork or a giant Karnstruck token or a giant Ravager or a giant anything because you put all the counters on it from Ravager is a giant one that has Trample and Lifelink and an extra +1/+1. The activated ability on it was never came up as relevant. There was never a situation where it was like, man, I really need my opponents to lose hexproof. 1 Chalice. I had plenty of games that I dumped my hand of MOX in and then Chaliced on 0, knowing that basically the rest of my deck is 1 and higher, and I was going to ruin my opponent's game plans while I was on the play of them not being able to cast MOX in, which that's the name of the game with Vintage. A Thorn of the Amethyst. Since I am on a Ravager creature-based build, the Thorn is a no-brainer. It's just more taxing effects. You're going to make way more mana than your opponents are 90% of the time. So playing taxing effects in the main is really good. Also, Tinker Storm is pretty decent. I played against it a couple of times, and the deck is pretty hot, so taxing them is good. We got a Crucible of Worlds, which, again, Wasteland, Strip Mine, makes sense to play them, either because the format is full of Wastelands and Strip Mines, and you're going to lose your lands, or because Wasteland and Strip Mine are there and you get to loop them so you can ruin people's days. I looped Inventor's Fair a few times with Crucible out, and then I also looped Buried Ruin a few times with Crucible out, and it was really good. But basically, with the Buried Ruin, it was my land for turn plus 2 mana was buy any artifact out of my yard and recast it, thanks to Crucible. Next to Crucible, I have a Mystic Forge. Again, being a colorless deck, the only thing that you cannot cast off the top is lands and your Metamorphs. Your Metamorphs don't have Devoid, so you cannot cast them off your top deck, but it is something that you can do in some capacity as far as running through things, and you can always just pay the life, get rid of the Metamorph and keep the chain going, or get rid of the land and keep the chain going, or at minimum check and see what you're drawing up on and see if it's relevant before your turn starts. I'll skip over this one for just a moment. A Manifold Key, infinite combo with Time Vault, and then give dudes unblockable so you can help kill. And then last but not least, Trinisphere, aka 3-ball. Again, Shop's deck, way more mana than everybody else is going to make. Makes sense to play something cute, like Trinisphere, that locks things out. We'll get to the rocks real quick. Volt, Crypt, Soul Ring. If you play Commander, you're familiar with these. They cost anywhere from 0 to 1 mana as far as an investment, and they tap for anywhere between 2 and 3. Volt being the most detrimental one of them by costing 1, tapping for 3, and then dealing you a damage in every upkeep if you don't untap it. Really good if you have key out. I had a couple of games where I went in your end step, tap Volt for 3, use 1 of it to activate key to untap the Vault, use the other 2 to tap Saga, make a construct. Black Lotus. That is not the one that I played this weekend. This is my buddy's beta one. I played a whiteboarded one, our high roller Alex. If you watch the video of Boss Man and Alex opening sorcery together, he loaned me his Lotus for the weekend, and I was very, very thankful for him to have done that, and played some fun games with it. Jet, that was loaned to me by Boss Man, and then a Ruby and Emerald loaned to me by the same gentleman who loaned me the Time Vault. Thank you, sir. Without even short a couple of pieces of power, I still did damn well. And then I filled the list out with a MOX Opal, just so that I could try to get as much 0-drop ramp in the deck as possible, and I figured most of the time MOX Opal should be live and tapping for mana. I only had, out of, played 9 rounds in the main event on Friday, and then I played 6 rounds on Saturday, so out of 15 rounds, I had 2 games. 15 matches of best of 3. I had 2 games where MOX Opal was dead, aka it was in like the opener, and I could keep going and making mana on the turn and playing things if it was a regular Moxen, but because it was Opal, it would have been the second artifact, which wouldn't have tapped, and then it doesn't tap for mana, which would have made it where I had to stop my chain. So that was the only problem. Subsequently, later on, I ended up with the other 2 pieces of Moxen, so I was able to make it work a little bit better, and I left the Opal in regardless, so that I had 6 Moxes, and most of my opponents had 5, because I'm also low on my account. Now, I will say this, moving forward, Opal could easily become that 3rd Saga that I was talking about earlier. Like, with access to a full set of power, which I have now, for Atlanta, this Opal might become Saga number 3, and just to be a little bit more consistent on lands. This thing, I'm going to pop this bad boy out. This was my cute one of fun of card, because like I said, I was down 2 pieces of power, so I had to make up for it. So I put an Opal in, and then I thought I would be cute, and I played Chumi The Inner Son. And this card's weird, but like the games that I casted, it felt really good. I played it on turn 1 against an opponent. I went turn 1, workshop, Mox Jet, tap the Mox Jet, play Soul Ring, tap, play Mana Vault, cast Chumi. And then in my end step, I discovered a Lodestone Golem, and my opponent was not happy. Yeah, my top deck was a Lodestone Golem, and I had I think I had a Strict Mine in my hand, and I was like, alright, Yep, seems math checks. It seems fine. Free lodestone golem that can't be countered. I'll go ahead and put that into play, and then on my turn I'll untap and I'll play the strip mine and nuke their land. Spells you control can't be countered. You're not playing any kind of interaction on the stack for the most part, except for some stuff out of the sideboard. So having something that is cute to play, I didn't mind. That being said, when I put the 2 pieces of power in, I probably will not play the Chumi, just because it was a fun of one of. And it could be a Sapphire. Like, and you'd rather play a Sapphire than play a 6-drop artifact. I might put it in the sideboard, and then just swap it out for matches that I think it might be relevant in. Speaking of sideboard, let's get some of this stuff out of the way real quick. We'll just stack up a couple of things. We'll leave Karn out here, because technically sideboard is his playground. So also, like, I know that there's a bunch of banter in the comments about where's Allie, why isn't Allie back, why isn't there some 20-year-old girl doing the videos, boss man, you're crazy, why is this old bearded dude making content now? I'm gonna let you guys in on something. Allie quit. I didn't fight for her job. I was totally happy in the shop doing magic. Her job includes way more than YouTube, which is what I'm doing now. YouTube is this thing that I'm doing every once in a great while in here. I have a full 40-plus hour workload week, so all you guys saying, just hire somebody to be YouTube, just hire somebody to do YouTube, congratulations. You have no idea what's going on in this business, so shut the hell up. Like, the job is not YouTube. I don't sit here and do YouTube all day long and look at YouTube comments. I have an entire building worth of inventory to price and orders to pull and things to ship and cards to buy and collections to bid and all sorts of things. So anyway, getting onto the sideboard and talking to the people who actually find the content that I'm making for the channel interesting. I'm going to leave Karn off to the side here because he's got some toys in the sideboard, and we'll start with his toys. So there's Walking Ballista number 4. I have a cage. I have a backup key because unlike Vault, which is restricted, key is not. I have the 4th ring. I have a portal to Phyrexia. I have a Mycosynth Lattice, which somebody said was training wheels, but I had a couple of games where I landed Karn and I had enough mana for Mycosynth Lattice, and my opponent was like, "You're just going to lattice lock me?" And I was like, "If I show you the lattice, can we just go to the next game?" And he's like, "Yeah, if you show me the lattice, we're done here." And I opened the deck box, grabbed the lattice out of it, and was like, "Here." He's like, "Yep, next game." And then Mindslaver, because I am blind to a big chunk of the format because I don't play a ton of Vintage. I don't have a Moto account, but after Eternal Weekend and playing Vintage and having an absolute blast, I most definitely will be getting a Moto account set up and a Mana Traders account so that I can play more Vintage, because this is the most fun that I've had playing Magic in a year, and I need something fun going on in my life because my life right now is work. So that is the Karn package for my sideboard. And then these are the rest of it. 2 Dismembers. I feel like 2 is the right number. I don't think there was any situation that I wanted a third. And I went through my deck pretty aggressively as far as drawing extra cards with rings and whatnot to not have to worry about it. Leyline of the Voids. I played 3 of them. 3 seems to be the magic number in Vintage. I know that in Modern and in Pioneer and in Legacy, Leyline of the Void is a 4 nothing kind of card. Nobody's playing 1 Leyline of the Void in their board, or 2 Leyline of the Voids in the board, or even 3 Leylines in the board. Then again, I have done the 3 instead of 4 thing, and it feels bad sometimes. In Vintage, though, you can just play them. Every deck has access to Black Lotus. Every deck has access to Mox Jet. And if you draw it subsequently in one of the later turns, you're just like, oh, sweet. Here's the Leyline of Void. I'm just going to cast it. I have, even if I don't have black mana in the deck, I can just cast this thing still. So 3 seems to be the sweet number for most Vintage decks on it. And then a pair of Mind Break Traps. This, as being a workshop deck, is your only interaction with spells and combos and things like that. I got super lucky. I played against a gentleman that I thought was on Tinkerstorm, and I crushed him in game 1. And I was like, alright, he's on Storm. Just from, like, what I saw, the interactions and the things that he took and, like, things of that sort, I was like, alright, he's got to be on Tinkerstorm. So I brought a pair of Mind Break Traps in. And come to find out, he was on Doomsday. So I just so happened to, like, luck sack the sideboarding. He went off, he Doomsdayed on turn 1. He made his pile. He passed. I had a Mind Break in my opening hand, which I thought, like, cool. I'm glad this is my opener. He's going to storm off. And I was just like, well, the sun, moon, and stars have all aligned for me here. There's no way this dude knows I have Mind Break, especially because I went through his remnants after he Doomsday piled, and his Force of Negation and all 4 of his Force of Wills were in there, so I was like, oh, you sad, sad man, you're gonna get trapped. And I played an Ancient Tomb, played a Patchwork Automaton, shat a bunch of artifacts out of my hand, made it a beater, and was just like, yeah, my hope is that you have a slow pile there and I get to swing away at you, sir. And he went to his turn and he Ancestraled himself, and then he drew for turn, he Ancestraled himself. He played a ritual. No, he didn't play a ritual. He played a Lotus, cracked the Lotus, and then cast Thassa's Oracle. And I snapped a Mind Break Trap onto the table, and he was like, really? And I was like, dude, I thought you were on Twiddle Storm, like Tinkerstorm. Well, you had my number. It is what it is. And then, last but not least, is a Tabernacle of Pentral Vale. So, sideboarding, the ley lines are definitely in for any of the Loris builds. Whether it be Loris, blue-white, or Esper Loris, or any number of few. I also brought the ley lines in. I had a match. We'll talk about matches. So round 1, I played against Hollowvine. My sides in were ley lines and the Tabernacle. I just sided out my Revokers They just legitimately zero things that they can name. In game 1, I was naming like I named the Root Wallas just on the off chance that he was spicy and played a single Yavimaya somewhere in his 75 to activate Root Walla, which I don't think that he would have. But I was naked and I had no idea what to name. And so I was just naming cards from Revokers just so I put bodies on the table to block with. I eventually won the game, so it didn't matter. And then I sided my Revokers out for ley lines, and I think I shaved a Sphere, just because he doesn't really cast anything. Or no, I shaved the Thorn of the Amethyst, because he doesn't really cast non-creature spells. There is like Force of Vigor and whatnot, but I figured with the spheres and everything like that, I'd be okay. And brought the Tabernacle in and got game 2. The follow-up round, I played against Luris. Again, ley lines in, dismembers in. Not a ton of stuff to name in the Luris deck. I left some amount of Revokers in, and those named Seal of Cleansing when I got to them. The ley lines were just better. We ended up going to game 3. I got it in game 3. And then went and sat down and played against another Hollow Vine deck. I played against a lot of... There was just shy of 400 players in the Vintage event, and I played against multiple Hollow Vines. And the deck is... I understand why the deck is around. A playset of Bazaar Baghdad's is your entry point into getting into Vintage. So it's not hard to be like, cool, I saved up enough money, or I traded enough cards in, or I sold enough cards and whatnot, or I did whatever I needed to do and I bought a set of Bazaars that are sleeve playable. And the rest of the deck outside of the set of Bazaars is like $200. It's almost nothing. It's super cheap. Because it's all just bad Dread creatures and Squeeze and Hollow Ones and Basking Root Wallas and Blazing Root Wallas and Vengevines. It's just all stuff that's relatively cheap. So it's a couple $100 and then a set of Bazaars. Moving on to round 4. I played against a bug control list, which you can kind of see my life total go from low to really high to dead. I had a high point in the middle of the match where I started to get in with a construct with Shadow Spear on it, and then he hit an Oko and turned my Shadow Spear into an elk. And then he started making more food, which made up being more elks. And then we were in the elk fight with Deathrite Shamans torturing me, and I eventually lost. And then we went to a game 2, and I lost as well. And that was round 4. And then we went on to round 5. I went to round 5, and played against a mono white initiative deck, which anybody who played Legacy at Eastern Weekend last year knows that the deck is a real menace. Well, it's even more of a menace with power in it, so that they can crack a Black Lotus on turn 1, and with an Ancient Tomb play 2 to 3 Adventure Guys in a turn. He absolutely trashed me game one. It was a huge slugfest back and forth. Game two was super grindy for a long period of time, and then eventually I hit Karn the Great Creator, and I grabbed Portal the Phyrexia while I had a couple of blockers on the table, and he had like 3 or 4 guys on the table. And we spent a couple of turns like him basically chip damaging here and there, or he would get in with like a guy or swing with one guy, and I would like double block or whatever we had to do, or I would try to get in with a construct, and then he would chump block, and we were just trying to get in for chip damage here and there and whatnot. But eventually it got down to I portaled and managed to get that game. After the fact of Portal being so good, I didn't want to chance not having the Portal, and I ended up just siding it in and siding something random out. I don't even remember what I took out to put the Portal back in. Dismembers were my only ins other than that, just so that I could try to kill some stuff. So I had a Portal to Phyrexia and 2 Dismembers in. I left out the 4th One Ring so that Karn had a lifesaver moment in him if I could get to him. And my opening hand was Shops, Lotus, Portal Phyrexia, and 3 cards I did not care about. I was like, alright, well, here's the number, this is what I've got. And I went at turn 1, Workshop, Black Lotus, pass. He played 2 Chrome Moxes and I believe an Ancient Tomb, and played a Archon of Emeria. I was like, alright, well, this sucks. Go to my turn, untap, play the other shop, tapped, nothing live off the top, pass. And then he played a Stony Silence and shut my Black Lotus off. And I was like, oh, well, I'm just dead to rights here. I'm going to get my face beat in by this Archon. And I drew the last shops off the top. Played the shops, took another swing from the Archon, untap, slam Portal, ate the Archon, went to my turn. He played nothing on his turn because he had an Ancient Tomb still as his only land. Or no, I played Portal and then I played a Strip Mine. That's what it was. I untapped with the last Workshop, played the Portal, ate his dude, played my Strip Mine so it came into play untapped, nailed his Ancient Tomb. He had a Stony Silence, I had a Black Lotus, he had 2 Chrome Moxes. He wasn't casting anything. Went to his turn, he missed land yet again. Went to my turn, I animated his Archon and played a Revoker, naming... What did I name? Oh, the new white 1/4 that vintage players are playing. It's like a 2-drop 1/4 Dauntless something. It's from LCI. Can't remember the name of it, but it basically Gorilla Shamans. And I was just like, yeah, I'll name that thing whatever stupid Dauntless, whatever guy that is that has an activated ability with this Revoker, and go ahead and proceeded to just 4 damage, 4 damage, 4 damage, 4 damage, 4 damage. He kept missing land drops. I kept making land drops as all wastelands and strip mines until eventually I hit a Saga. And my game plan was he was going to play something and then I was going to strip mine or Wasteland, whatever land he had. And I eventually got it. I then went on to round 6 and played against the one person that I mentioned out of the entire weekend that was a little sweaty. I played against another Vine deck. That is my third Vine deck of 6 matches. 50% of my matches were Vine into the 6th round, and I lost 2-0. He had a mulligan to 5 that put lethal on the table on turn 2. And that's all the math that checks there. I subsequently went to game 2 after he absolutely trashed me, and opened with Leyline of the Void, and again, I took Revokers and a Taxing effect out of the deck and brought Leylines and Tabernacles in. I opened with a Leyline of the Void. I played Tabernacle as my land for turn just to kind of think that I was going to be able to do something, and he opened with turn 1 Strip Mine. I was like, what the hell's going on? I didn't think you guys played any lands. Stripped my, I guess there are 4 Wasteland, 4 and 1 Strip Mine, and then 4 Bazaars. So, wrecked my tower, tore my Tabernacle down, and then passed to me, and in my upkeep, Force of Vigored my Leyline of the Void, went to his turn, tapped Bazaar, and put 3 Root Wallas in play. And I was like, dope, cool, yeah. Those are Root Wallas. Maybe I can still get out of this. I played a Shops and played out a couple of cards and some rocks and whatnot. Played some bodies, and his follow-up turn was second Bazaar, and Bazaar activation put another Root Wall in play, and then he cast 3 Hollowed Vines and put 2 Venge Vines into play and killed me. And I was like, this is nuts. And that was after, like, just chip damage here from Root Walls and whatnot. The follow-up turn was just like, yeah, I'm at 10 and I'm dead. This sucks. Like, he just beat the hell out of me. Going on to round 7, I played against Tinkerstorm. My opponent did not respect the beeps at all. I put a Patchwork into play, and I beeped his power and toughness real damn big, and sent him a run-in right at my opponent's face. He forced something, went to 19, and then I swung 5, I swung 5, I swung 5. And he was like, yep, that's lethals. I was like, yeah, it is. Game 2, he stormed off. He beseeched the hell out of me and went through all the motions and did all the things, and yeah. And then the last game, I beat the absolute hell out of him with robots again. The joke all weekend long was that the bots go beep beep, and there are the reason they beep beep is because they don't stop for red lights, they don't stop for stop signs, they beep beep and blow right through them fucking things. Oh my god, it's like I think I just cursed. Oh, I'm not supposed to be cursing in these. At least boss man told me not to curse. We'll edit and we'll figure that out. You demonetized. I think it's if I say another one, it remonetizes. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyway, the robots have no respect for red lights, and they beep beep and run them. So I got that match, and then I played the pair down, and my opponent was very confident in his excuse me, he was very confident in his math that at X21 he was going to prize. I was X2. I assured him that the math was incorrect, but that I was not going to twist his arm, and that I wanted to play Magic regardless, and I came to have fun, and I'm not stressing it. But if he would be so inclined as to concede the win on paper and keep me live for cash, I would appreciate it. There is no monetary aspect on the line. I basically just wanted the bragging rights of being like, hell yeah, I cashed my first vintage paper tournament I ever played in. He declined, which, again, no big deal. It is what it is. I'm a math guy, and I knew that his math was not going to line out. And at the end of the event, when I went over and looked, he was not in cash. So, math checks. Granted, at X2, I would have been in cash. But I don't know what my match would have been afterwards. Regardless, my opponent was on oath. And he got the matches. Like, he got the match regardless. We went to a game 3. He caught me in game 3. But I did have a match where I just refused to let him trigger oath. I had ballistas in my hand, and my game plan was that I was going to play ballista, shoot his dude, and then shoot him in the face so that I had no creature. He played a Forbidden Orchard and gave me a dude, and I was like, that's the last one of those that I'm getting. Wasteland. Ballista off of a Mana Crypt on 1, ping the spirit, pass the turn, and yeah. So I did have a game that I just starved him out and then killed him, but it is neither here nor there. He got that match. He had his very slim number chance at prizing, and then I played my last round, even though my buddies were like, let's get out of here, and I was like, no, it's one more round. When am I going to get to play paper vintage, no proxy vintage again? And also, it's the last round. Like, I'm going to make a video about the event, so let's play. And sat down and I played against a gentleman who was on a Esper Luris build, and we had fun going back and forth with matches, and he would take some turns that were really good. I would take some turns that were really good. He would whittle me down on life. I would whittle him down on life. And eventually, I got the match in game 3. Had a couple dudes. He just couldn't make enough blockers. There was a Leyline of the Void out, so he had no access to his graveyard. And they were very interactive, very fun, and we ended up playing against each other in a side event later on in the weekend, and remembered each other, and we were like, oh, the jig is up. I know what you're on. I know your plan. I know you're doing. But we had a blast playing. I did play the deck in side events on Saturday because I dropped from the main event. I played my pet deck. It is in Legacy of Mono Green 12 Post, and I did very poorly. One day I will realize not to fly to the other side of the country and play a pet deck, but regardless, I have 5 missing cards here because they are the Rings and the Tabernacle that are in that deck. But we're going to do this deck tech and drop out live. I should have separated this when I separated the other one while I was over there. So let's pull the lands real quick. I'll lay the lands out. I'll make explanations on my lands. And then we'll do a quick sideboard, which is missing the pair of Dismembers, which are in my vintage deck right now. You'd think with all the cards that I own that I would not have to do this, but you'd be wrong, because I like to travel light. So we have a lot of fun of one of lands. Cavern, Yavimaya, Thespian Stage. Hidden Nursery is new tech that I'm playing. You can't read that card. It's the green common cave from Lost Caverns of Ixalan that discovers 4. Echoing Depths, also new card from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. That is new tech. I'll go over that in a moment. Dark Depths. Taiga. Caracas. Bajukity Bog. And then we'll get to the namesake and multiples of the deck. Tubaseju, 4 Forests, 2 Vesuva, 4 Glimmer Post, and 4 Cloud Post. So, the Caracas is atypical in the list, so you can bounce your Emrakul, recast it, or your Ulamog and recast it, or any of your Eldrazi or your Legendaries and recast them to get their cast triggers over and over again, either winning the game via attrition by blowing up all of your opponent's stuff with Ulamog, loopage, or Emrakul looping for infinite turns. Bojuka Bog, utility land just in there to catch your stuff like Breakfast decks and your decks of similar that like to play around in the graveyard. That being said, I'm going to keep separating the rest of the deck out to make it easier for me to continue on this small deck tech with you folks. Then Vesuva, which is self-explanatory. The Vesuva is there to copy any of your lands that you need to copy, mainly Glimmer Posts and Cloud Posts, whether you need to either pad your life or you need to make a ton of mana. Then you have your Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo. Your Thespian Stage is really in here to copy your Cloud Post lands, but since you play it, you might as well play a single copy of Dark Depths, because why not? Why not play a one of fun of? It is what it is. And you have matches where you're able to kill with the Dark Depths, so it's worth playing it. Caverns is self-explanatory. You're usually naming your giants because your Eldrazi, for the most part, are uncounterable. So you're naming giants so that your prime times are uncounterable, or whatever else you might need. I have Ugin, tutor your Eldrazi up, Yavimaya, everything's forests, because all of your spells are green that aren't colorless. The Hidden Nursery is new tech that I'm testing out. I've been semi-impressed with it. I used to run a single Horizon land for a redraw. I've since found that Hidden Nursery, while it's infinitely more mana involved in the activation, because you're tapping up for so much mana, it's irrelevant, and you're guaranteed to not hit a land. And the amount of times that I have flooded and redrawn with a Horizon land and hit a land and gone, man, if this was any spell, I'd feel better. Congratulations, now it's any spell. Echoing Depths is Q tech. The deck used to run 2 Thespian Stage. It's since moved to 1 and 1 on the Echoing Depths. Echoing Deeps, sorry, not Depths. Echoing Deeps. So Echoing Deeps either enters untapped as a colorless land, which you don't care about it only being colorless. The best stuff in your deck is colorless. Or it copies something that's in the yard. I have crop rotation a Bojuka Bog out into an Echoing Depths to copy the Bojuka Bog that's in the yard to Bojuka Bog my opponent again after they've gone for the second Reanimator line. They hated me. You know who you are. Somebody local. I have also copied a Hidden Nursery that is in my yard to get another activation at a Hidden Nursery. I've copied Dark Depths so that I can get a secondary Thespian Stage crack with Dark Depths. I've copied Thespian Stage to copy a Cloud Post. I've copied Cloud Posts and Glimmer Posts that have been hit into the yard so that I can make up for the fact that they're gone. The Caracas is somebody wastelands it. I have Ugin even. Like, I've copied plenty of things with the Echoing Depths. I think the tech of using it is really good. And again, the worst case scenario, you just have it enter untapped as a regular land. Now, that being said, most of your lands should enter untapped because... Oh, I'm sure you guys are curious about the Taiga. I'll leave the Taiga over here because I have a spicy sideboard card and a spicy mainboard card that I saw in a couple other lists and I decided to run. So let's do the spice card from the main board, Moloch. So this is a card that was played in some lists in the Legacy events at Eternal Weekend. It's one of the Warhammer 40k cards. Try to get a good angle on this card so you guys can read it if you don't know what it does. X, red, green, ravenous. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to one target creature opponent controls. If that creature would die this turn, exile instead, and it's a 2/2. So, basically, Moloch is in the deck to deal with problems. You don't have a lot of removal spells in mono green. This kills every creature that's not indestructible. You can eat Magus of the Moons because that card sucks. You can eat Collector Oofs because that card is a pain. Will not let you draw with your rings. And then also, like, you can pump a ton of mana into this. So Ravenous enters battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. If X is 5 or more, draw a card when it enters. So if you spend 7 on this guy, he ends up being a 7/7 that draws you a card, and when he enters the battlefield, he fights something. And then the thing that he fights, he exiles. So basically, because there's a good chance that you're going to have more mana than something's going to have power in order to trade with this, he ends up being a big boy that exiles target creature and then draws you a card. That's the reason that I wanted to try it out, and I put the Taiga in the list. I wanted to be able to cast him without having to be like, he's just my main deck answer to Magus of the Moon. The other thing is, he gets his ETB regardless of whether or not you Ravenous, so like, I'll Green Sun for 2, X is 2, and go grab Moloch and just trade him with a Magus of the Moon all day, every day. Let's get into the rest of the deck here. I have 4 crop rotations. That's atypical of 12 post. There's no weird tech or anything there. Like, I didn't play an odd number or anything. This is the odd thing to most people. I'm on 3 Elvish Reclaimers just because the card just... ugh. the amount of times that I've played Elvish Reclaimer, and he's basically been, I gain 1 life, and then I die, and then it dies. Is so often that I'm just like, I'm playing a game, get time walk to gain 1 life. Like, it's just so mediocre. So I shaved 1. I don't know if I'll shave another 1 or not. 1 expedition map. You have so many ways to tutor. Honestly, with how underperforming Reclaimer has been, I might go up to more maps and cut more Reclaimers. Pithy Needle. 3 of in the main. The Wasteland decks suck against you. Also, like, there's a handful of Planeswalkers. Stoneforge Mystic putting a Cauldron into play is a pain in the ass. So, Cephalid Breakfast with Shukos and Cephalid Illusionists and stuff like that. Like, Pithy Needle's just good to have. We're into the one-ofs. We got Ramanop, Excavator, needless to say. You can Green Sun for it, and it's a Crucible of Worlds. I played 1 Endurance in the main, which was very relevant. I had a Cephalid Breakfast match where I won the dice roll. Kid was super nice. He seemed very new to Legacy. He was my round 2 opponent. Sorry, my round 3 opponent. My round 1 opponent, or my round 2 opponent, was a gentleman that I ended up getting very friendly with, and then playing some vintage side events with, and then he actually saw me at dinner Sunday before we were packing up, and we chatted and did one of those like half bro hug handshake things that straight men do. Yeah, one of those like bro hug things where you're just like, yeah, I hope you best travels. I'll see you at Oklahoma City Land Run, and I'll see you next year for Eternal Weekend. And don't think that I'll forget about you, so don't forget about me. We're gonna do the Breakfast Club thing when we walk in the building and see each other next year. It's gonna be real fun. But the Endurance came into play in round 3. I played against a young gentleman who looked very new to Legacy, and I won the die roll, and I was like, jig's up, I'm just going to show you what I'm doing, and I put a cloud post on the table, knowing that I was just going to like dump hard mana and just try to go off, and he was like, well, if you're showing all your cards, I'll show mine too, and he played a turn 1 Shuko, and I was like, oh, breakfast! I'm glad my opening hand has the Endurance. We're going to go for the line and see if he's better than I am. He wasn't. He went for his combo. I let him go for his combo. He went to sack 3 dudes to flash back, Dread Return, and I Enduranced with it on the stack so that it fizzled. And I was like, if you want to keep playing, we can keep going. But he's like, nah, I think we can pack it up here. And I'm like, if I show you a threat from my hand, does it make it easier? And he's like, yeah. And I flashed him one of these bad boys, Prime Time. And I was like, here, man, like, I got a Prime Time in my hand. I'll just play it and just swing. And that'll be it. And he's like, all right, yeah, cool. At least you have a threat. Like, I don't want to scoop and, like, we're both doing nothing here. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't say, do you want to go to the next game if I didn't have some way to close this game in a reasonable amount of time. Because with your whole deck back, you can pivot to make Saga tokens. Next up is Green Sun Zenith, which I play a full set of 4 of, which is atypical. I've shaved down to 3 from time to time, depending on how I like to fill my list out at any point. But somewhere between 3 and 4 is nice. I do have a mismatching set. I have 1 Japanese one, so if anybody has Japanese Green Sun Zeniths from Mirrodin Besieged, let me know. I would love to finish my set. I'm very much into foreign cards. My Reclaimers are Russian. If you have a 4th one, let me know. I would love to finish the set. And then we'll get on to the the big nasties of the deck. Atypical, we got an Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn. Like I explained earlier, looping it with Karakas to take infinite turns while you beat your opponent to death is a plan. One Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger. Again, he's indestructible, hard to answer. You get the value on the cast trigger of exiling 2 things. You can Karakas, loop it, and keep doing it, which I've done, which feels good for me and bad for you. And then after looking at some spicy lists, seeing Emrakul the Promised End, I figured I would try it. It actually won me my game 1 in round 1. I gotta take a sip of water here. I cast an Emrakul the Promised End. And my opponent conceded. They had had enough. Shout out to Roland. It was great to see you again, dude, if you're watching this. And I have a blast every time we play, whether it's main events, side events, whatever it is. We've played each other twice at Eternal Weekend now, and you're a super nice dude. I'm going to figure out how to take the photo that you sent me of all of us at the convention center, all 900 plus of us in the main event, and use as the thumbnail for this video. I'm going to make Ashton edit it in, and I'm crediting you now in the video, but I'll credit you in the comments as the photographer for the thumbnail. Everyone, if you don't know Roland Chang, check him out. Like, awesome Pro Tour player. Has a gorgeous legacy deck that is all JPN foils when applicable. He has a few things that are not, but it's very few and far between. The deck is gorgeous, and it's good to look at, and it's just phenomenal. He has a few things that are not foil, but everything is Japanese, and it looks phenomenal. And then, Emrakul the Promised End, it was the nail in the coffin for game 1 against him. He had seen enough, and he went on to beat the absolute tar out of me in 2 games, in game 2 and game 3. And the reason that I even had a fighting chance against him was this card here, Spelunking. Spelunking is new tech that I've decided to try out in the list, and I've been overly impressed with it every step of the way. I have not had a game where I played a Spelunking that I felt bad. I have also not had a game where I have played Spelunking and the static text of lands you control enter the battlefield untapped is not relevant. Even when flooding, it's still good. That being said, like, it's very rare that you gain the 4 life off of the Spelunking by putting a cave into play, but I have put a Hidden Nursery into play and gained 4 life, and I have put Echoing Deeps into play and gained 4 life, but it is very few and far between. That being said, the growth spiral that you get out of it, and then the static effect is so good. I think it puts the deck a little bit over the top in power level if you can get it on the table. It also makes Reclaimer infinitely better, because Reclaimer's ability then becomes crop rotation, because otherwise it normally enters the battlefield tapped, and Spelunking fixes that. And then I have 2 cards here that are the spice, and I only cast them once this weekend, and when I cast them, my opponent scooped. Rise of the Eldrazi, and I am currently on 2 copies. I tailored the list at one point to play a full set of 4, along with 4 rings, and it was just very win more. Yeah, that's what the the last cards here should be 4 rings and then 1 tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, which we saw earlier in my vintage deck. Ring is absurdly good in every deck that I play it in, and I play it in every format that I can as a 4 of. Do I think the card should be banned? No. Would I be upset if it was banned? No. I own 1 set of rings. I moved them from vintage to legacy to modern, and I rotate them around. I only own 4. If you ban them out of modern, I'll keep playing them in legacy. If you ban them out of legacy, I'll keep playing them in modern. If you ban them out of both, I will let them sit and collect dust in my deck box to play vintage, and I will play vintage 2 to 3 times a year and cast 4 fucking rings out of that. And there's the second one. We're remonetized now. I'll just cast them in that. Like, I don't care. The card's good. I don't think it's detrimental. We were talking at the vintage tables of things that they could have done. They could have printed on the card it being restricted to 1 in a deck. Someone said that the counters should be tied to the player and not the ring. After we kind of all thought about that, we realized that that's a double-edged sword. Because if the counters are tied to the player and not the ring, that means that they could potentially figure out a way to loop cast multiple rings in a turn. And instead of drawing 1 card off of each one of those rings, they're drawing however many counters are on them while putting more counters on them. So, say you're at 3, and you tap your ring, you get another counter, you draw 4, you play a ring. Instead of resetting the counters down to 0, tapping and drawing 1 card, you have the 4 counters, so you tap it, you give yourself a 5th one and draw 5. So now if you can loop or bounce that and keep casting it, you're going to draw a ton of cards. Now you can figure out ways to twiddle it, or use key to untap it and retap it and gain a bunch and draw a bunch more cards. But that also means that while you have all those counters, if you can get rid of your ring, you don't take damage unless you have a ring in your upkeep. It was weird. We were kind of chatting about stuff. Old players talk about ways to adjust cards to fit closer to like how older cards would have been printed. And then vice versa, we look at old cards and figure out how we can update them so that they will be actually factually playable, because some of them just aren't at this point. Like, one of the avatars from some of the avatars from Prophecy just having Delve or Convoke, or like costing less for like other resources that you can use other than like just meeting X requirements. So things of that sort. But this is the main deck tech on my 12-post deck. I am going to shimmy these up real quick, and I will go over the sideboard real fast, which again is missing a couple cards because I have stuff in my vintage deck currently. Also, what are we looking at on time? 5:45. I'm going to get yelled at by the missus because I'm still here at the shop. It's fine. 1 Seeds of Innocence. I was expecting a ton of 8 cast. And I played against 8 cast, and I bricked my draws. And I saw no answers, and I lost. 3 Force of Vigors. Because again, I expected a lot of 8 cast. I saw 8 cast, I bricked my draws, I lost. 3 Carpet of Flowers. I expected a ton of blue decks. I saw Delver decks. One time, I had one match, two matches that had islands. I brought them in both times. Roland beat the hell out of me in round one faster than any Carpet of Flowers would have ever helped me. And then my next round opponent, the carpets were not relevant. I was making way more mana than he had lands already, so it was irrelevant. The two blank cards are two dismembers. It's just nice to have them. Have them and not need them is basically the way I feel about Dismember, instead of need them and not have them. Two Veil of Summers. I brought these in against my blue matches and didn't draw them, so it didn't matter. Actually, I think I cycled one against Roland, and it didn't matter. Fair Macabre. Played it as a one of. I brought it in against Cephalid Breakfast, and I ended up not needing it. I ripped my Emrakul. I cast my Emrakul. I took his turn, and I ruined his deck. The way I like to explain it when I cast Emrakul is, I'm going to take your turn, and I'm going to ruin your deck as much as, and your hand as much as I possibly can before I give it back. Not physically, I don't want to hurt or damage your cards, but I'm going to ruin your game plan and your deck as much as I possibly can, and your hand and everything else. And just so happens he had two of the three parts of his combo in his hand when I cast it, and ripped the third one off the top. And I was like, oh. I'm going to combo you out, and then I'm going to miss your Thoracle until you have no cards in hand, and then I'm going to pass to your second turn, and then you can die in the upkeep. And he was like, math checks, good game, sir. So I didn't actually use my fairy, but I had it. Second Endurance. Graveyard decks are a real big pain for me, and so are Delvers, which are very fast. That being said, Endurance eating the yard, then blocking Darcy's or Delvers and whatnot is really good. Unfortunately, I didn't draw them when I was playing against Roland, and I died. I don't have my matches really written out for Legacy, but I can kind of remember them more. I played against Grixis Delver round 1, lost in game 3. Played against Jeskai Control in round 2. I got it 2-0. I had a couple of games where I Besaju'd Blood Moon after playing a Dark Depths and just made a 20/20 and then forced them to Swords it. I actually did that twice in a game and had so much life that I had my One Ring up to 9 counters and I was still drawing cards because I was looking for the second Besaju to crack the Blood Moon and then cast the Emrakul and take infinite turns. And I had enough padding on my life from making 2 Merit Legions and having them both sorted. Round 3 was the Cephalid Breakfast game. And then round 4, I played against 8 Cast, which I bricked all of my draws. And then game 2, I had just a terrible opener. I had like 5 lands in it. I figured I could play through and make some actions happen. And I just drew running lands. I cast my One Ring. He had a counter for it. Good days. Drew off the top. Another land. Shot for a prime time that was in my hand. And he had gone off. Played everything out of his hand but 3 cards. And happened to be that Force plus blue card was 2 of the last 3, because it always is. Maze of Ith. This card did work in round 5, which was my last round of the event, before I dropped and went over and played Vintage, and subsequently went 3-0 in one challenge event and 2-1 in the second challenge event. So Um, my record in Vintage was way better than my record in Legacy. I ended up 2-3 drop. Maze of Ith, though, I played against Dimir Shadow / Dimir what is it? Scam, like a Scam Shadow deck. Basically, Trolls of Khazad-dûn, Grief, Death Shadow, and Orcish Bowmasters, and the blue is in the deck for Force and Gaze, and some cantripping, some brainstorms and stuff like that. Maze of Ith did work. I blanked a Troll of Khazad-dûn for like 7 turns, and then he finally hit a Wasteland and blew my Maze of Ith up and beat the absolute hell out of me. It is what it is. Can't help it. And then the final card in the sideboard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, Fire Spout. So I saw a list running Fire Spout, and I was like, I have Fire Spouts. This looks spicy. Must be for the aggro match. Must be so that we can kill Darcy's and Delvers out of the air, and goblins on the ground, and things of that sort. Basically, all the stuff that you would use Pyroblast for, but a little bit more versatile, because if you just pump green into it, you can kill Darcy's and Delvers and leave your Elvish Reclaimers on the table, or your Ramanops on the table, which is fine. Or you can fire just red off into it and kill everything and leave your Endurance on the table. Whatever your little heart desires. And I wanted to try it out, and I had a Taiga as part of my collection, and I have Fire Spouts, and I have Moloch, so I figured I'd try the small red splash. Unfortunately, I did not get in a situation where the Fire Spout was relevant other than in round 1, and I didn't draw it against Roland, so it wasn't relevant in that match. I mean, it would have been a nice card if I would have hit it, but I never got to it. And also, I didn't have any lands in Game 3, so that's neither here nor there. I got a crop rotation countered that I went for because I had to, and I got double wastelanded, and then I missed a land drop because I just didn't draw one. And yeah, that was that. I ended up 2-3. I knew that X3 could still prize, but knowing that at 5 out of 11 rounds, I would then have to run hot, undefeated 6 matches in a row in order to prize. I was like, you know what? There's a Vintage event in 45 minutes. We're just going to go do that. And I sat down and I 3-0'd that Vintage event, and I was like, oh, well, the boys are still here. One of them's still in the main. He's live for prizing, and he's going to play his matches tomorrow and everything like that if he keeps going good. So he's going to keep playing. And then I was like, all right, well, I'll sign up for another one. And signed up for that one and started out 2-0 and lost in game 2 to this nice kid who was passing out business cards for OKC Land Run, and he proceeded to cast a One Ring for protection while having Crucible Worlds on the table. And then he started Wasteland and Fast Bond, and he started wastelanding all of his own lands to then bring them back with the Fast Bond, not take the damage because he has protection, tap them for mana, and then wasteland them again, and basically make infinite mana and just cast everything that he wanted off of his top deck with Bolas's Citadel, because then he had infinite mana, so he didn't have to use life. And eventually just hit Time Vault and Key and was like, I'll take infinite turns. And I'm like, I'll scoop if you show me a win condition. Which eventually he was like, oh yeah, there's sagas in here. And like, I was like, just show me a saga, because I know you can make, if you make 2 tokens and then just swing, even if you make 1 token and you just swing for 1 or X over however many turns with dudes out, I'll just scoop, because that's the smart thing to do as a human, to save yourself some time, because time is money and time is valuable. So he got it, and I wasn't bitter, and I wasn't mad or anything like that. It's how the game goes. It's how Vintage runs. Sometimes you run hot, sometimes you run cold, sometimes shenanigans happen on turn 1, sometimes the shenanigans happen on turn 15, who knows. But that being said, Eternal Weekend, once again, as a recap overall, is one of the funnest, most enjoyable events that I've ever been to. 2 years in a row now. Every single staff member that is part of Card Titan, which puts the event on. All of the judges that go to the event, some of them that I know personally, some of them that I've met at the event and then become friends with. The artists that show up, some of them that I rub shoulders with every time I see them then. Some of them that I meet for the first time. And then the same with guys on the floor, whether it's high-end pro players that I then get to see at multiple events, and we start to know each other by name and kind of become buddies, and then check in on each other when we see each other playing our matches and whatnot. And then guys that you rub shoulders with while you're playing at the events, and then you play inside events with them, or when you're passing each other coming back and forth out of the smoking section or from the bathrooms or from vendors or whatever it is, and you're just like, hey man, how your match is going? Are you still in? What's your record? Everything is super friendly, super nice, and very personable at Eternal Weekend. And that's what I live for it every year. I'm coming off of the highest point of my year and the funnest weekend that I've had all year long, and I traveled all year long. I went to Dallas, I went to all over the state of Florida playing RCs. I will be in Atlanta next weekend, and I would give all of those other experiences and all of those other events up for a second Eternal Weekend. And finding out about Oklahoma City Land Run in July, which is a 3-day Eternal event, team trios, Modern Legacy Vintage, and then Legacy and then Vintage with Reserve List Proxy. Definitely, but that 3-day event, look, you get to see the fat old man in the corner of the same room that has always been in the camera, but for some reason now bothers people just because I don't have stuff on the wall. I have a bunch of art and I have a bunch of promotional items and everything like that. I just haven't had the time to get everything set up because I work and do actual work. Shocker that my job is not sit in front of the camera, but clearly you can't explain that to people. They think that all I'm doing is YouTube, and the 4 videos you've seen out of Titan in the last 3 months is all I've ever done, and then I just sit here and I'll paint my feet or something. I paint my toenails. If you're on the channel and you're one of those guys that's yelling that Allie's not here anymore and there should be some 20-something-year-old staring into the camera and ooh-wooing at you, there's plenty of U sites and X sites and fan sites that you can go look at girls at. If you don't like the content, there's an unsubscribe button. If you're here for rip content and magic content, whether it's opening stuff when a set comes out, I'm just going to open a box in the middle of the week for no reason, or deck tech, or recaps from big events. Congratulations, I'll do another one when I get back from Atlanta, and then I won't do one for a little bit because holidays. And then just magic content in general. If you go back and you watch Allie's last video, Boss Man explains, Allie's gone. She's not coming back. Keep crying. It's not going to change. Tell John he should spend more money. That he didn't fire her. She quit. Get over it. You get Boss Man. You get buddies of ours from time to time, and you get me. You don't like it? Click a different tab while you're sitting in your room by yourself doing whatever you're doing. Because you get no fan service out of me. Sorry. I told you all I'm ugly. I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. I'm here for the content. I'm not here to get famous or anything like that, and I really don't care. I want to make the content as long as you guys want the content. If the channel goes to 0 followers after the video goes up, I'll stop making videos. If the channel still has followers, I'll keep making the content. Somebody's clicking like buttons. Somebody's being positive in the comments. You guys still are not hurting my feelings, and I dared you to. Anyway, rambling done. An extra almost hour and 45 minutes just on deck tech stuff, so we're going to splice together a huge video between the stuff that I bought and showed off and now deck techs on 2 decks. I knew this would be a long video, but it is what it is. That all being said, I thank you if you paid attention this long in the video. If you just came here to hate on me, thanks. It keeps my beard turning gray, and it keeps me slim. That being said, ladies and gentlemen who are fans of the channel and fans of the dumb stuff that I do and the dumb stuff that I say, I think that's it for me today. I don't think you need to look at me anymore, because hell, I don't want to look at me anymore. So I will see you guys when I get back from Atlanta.